Hello all and sundry. Thought I'd do a little book review. I don't know if I'm going to be the only person watching this, in case, hello future me. But yeah, I'm just going to go through what I've been looking at, hoping that it'll encourage me to get a better understanding of what's happening, and maybe I can get someone else to read something. That would be pretty cool. Okay, first book. Don't know if I'm doing it transition there or not, but anyway. So I read Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis was an atheist at 15, but around the age of 30 converted to Christianity after converting to theism a couple years earlier. And yeah, it's just a set of 3 different talks that he did on BBC Radio in the 1940s, and talking about basically theism. So it is a Christian book, but actually doesn't really talk about the Bible all that much, which I found quite helpful. Not that the Bible's wrong, but you know, approaching theism just from a purely logical standpoint, you know, setting the ideas one by one, why God exists, and eventually at the end of the book he comes to Christianity. But I think it's a good introduction, even if you're not a Christian, if you're agnostic, you just want to figure out if God is there, if there's any reason for it. It's definitely a good one to check out. So the key ideas, the 9 main points I've got here. This isn't me, this is from some other website I stole it from. But so the first idea, all human beings have an intuitive knowledge of the universal moral law. So the idea that moral is objective between cultures. So something as drastic as murder, everyone believes it's wrong. You can't make some logical argument for why you know, it would be justified just murdering someone. And you know, that begs the question, where does that morality come from? Why do we all believe that, irregardless of culture? And yeah, well, there's some other ideas, but it goes along lines like that, talking about morality and you know, the Christian God and just other gods in general. It felt like the first half of the book was just very slow, no mention of a Christian God at all, basically, which was interesting. So if you're not a Christian, you're curious, I'll definitely check it out. I rate it 5 out of 5. Next book. So next one I had a look at was The Picture of Dorian Gray. Had a lot of recommendations, and well, our school did it as an extension English program, which I did not do because I did not enjoy English in high school at all. So everyone else who in my friend group has read it would have a different idea. I don't really know exactly what's going on. I didn't do heaps of research, but I did this. So Oscar Wilde was an Irish poet and playwright. And apparently he was known for his wit, flamboyant dress, and glittery conversational skill, making him one of the best-known personalities of the day. And, well, just in reading the book, it reminds me of the main character, Dorian Gray. So Dorian Gray is this beautiful man, I think he's like 17 or 20 or something, and everyone loves him, and he's got this real innocence about him. And he's got this friend, Basil Hayward, who paints a picture of him, and Basil's completely infatuated by Dorian, and this picture of Dorian Gray is just a beautiful, beautiful picture. It's like perfect, and it encapsulates his beauty so well that when Dorian looks at it, due to the influence of another friend, Lord Henry, he begins to think that this painting is better than he is, because it will never age or die. So he makes this what's it, a Faustian bargain. So like a deal with the devil, not really, but he sort of just says, oh man, I wish eye would just stay as beautiful as the painting and the painting would grow old, which actually does happen. So I had a look into the idea of a Faustian bargain, and it goes all the way back to this sort of German legend where a scholar named Faust is highly dissatisfied with his scholarly life, which leads him to make a pact with the devil, where he exchanges his soul for unlimited knowledge. And this kind of deal with the devil idea is so common in literature today, like in The Princess and the Frog, the shake a poor sinner's hand, like that kind of TikTok thingy. And it's in the movie Hercules, which I guess is not really modern, but it's an adaptation. Even something like Star Wars, we've got Anakin sort of going to the dark side to try and bring his wife back to life, that kind of thing. So that was interesting. It's like this reiteration of that old idea, making a deal with the devil, and it never goes well. It's never a good idea. Like Lord Henry in the story, he even says, what does it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? So the idea is kind of like what I took from the book. There's no short, easy way, just hedonistic way just to get whatever you want. You want to be satisfied. You got to do the right things, basically. You can't cheat. Can't cheat fulfillment is what I felt with that. Another idea from the book is aestheticism, which was something that Oscar Wilde subscribed to. It was an idea from the late 19th century, which privileged the aesthetic value of literature, music, and art, and the idea of art for art's sake. So sort of any political or ethical implications of art kind of comes at the expense of the quality of the art itself. I sort of felt like, in my opinion, politics can ruin art. The beauty of it comes at the expense of trying to teach someone a lesson sometimes, but I don't think it's an objective thing. You can't apply it to all art, and sometimes if it's got no political message, no one's going to see it. Is it still art if no one looks at it? I don't know. But yeah, anyway, I found it quite an interesting book. It is horror. I didn't realize how dark it would get at the end, which I guess I won't really spoil it, but my favourite character in the book was Lord Henry. I think he's actually quite funny. He's sort of like the devil on the shoulder, and everyone that he talks to, they're just like, your ideas are horrible, but no one can resist having him around, because he is the devil's advocate every single scene. So he says some really interesting things. Sometimes I agree with them, which I don't know if I'm supposed to, but he says, Dorian is far too wise not to do foolish things now and then, my dear Basil. So Lord Henry is all about how the only thing you never regret are your mistakes, which is a strange idea, but it does, make an emphasis on you are who you are because of what you learned from what you did wrong. And those big mistakes that you cringe at in the past actually make you who you are, which is the adapted version of his idea that I really like. He says, nowadays people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. Definitely true. And he says, people say sometimes that beauty is only superficial. That may be so, but at least it is not so superficial as thought is. To me, beauty is the wonder of wonders. It is only shallow people who do not judge by appearances. So that's definitely saying, the aesthetic value of art is super important. And I found it quite an interesting book. I wouldn't call it my favorite. Some people really, really enjoy it. I will give it 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, next book. Next one I read was called Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. So Jules Verne was a French writer, and his books, Journey to the Center of the Earth, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Around the World in 80 Days, made him the second most translated author in the world since 1979, which ranks between Agatha Christie and William Shakespeare. So I didn't realize how much of a reach this Jules Verne guy actually had. But I gave the book a read, and it's about this guy named Phileas Fogg, who's super calm, super collected. There's a new show coming out where David Tennant plays him. But his character, he makes this really cold, calculated bet with his buddies at the Reform Society that he can go around the world in 80 days. Nowadays, he bets £20,000, which nowadays would be about 6 million Australian dollars, apparently. And the fastest recorded time going around the world is 31 hours. So it wouldn't really work as a novel nowadays, but it is very immersive from the time period it was written in. So it goes through literally every single train stop, like what time he catches everything. Very, very, very specific. It tells you every single thing logistically that happened, and I found myself getting a little bit bored by that. But it was a good, simple story. Antics happen, things go wrong, and he gets back. And, I'll just say, like, he manages to get around the world in 80 days. Pretty sad novel if he didn't. But, yeah, it was interesting. Wasn't too challenging. Personally, I did find it a bit repetitive, talking about trains and boats a little too much. But I think that was part of his writing style, the realism. So it felt like you wanted to really feel like it really happened, and it did feel like it could have just been recounting something that actually did happen. So I liked it, but it wasn't too challenging. Nothing too complex happening. So I will give it 3 out of 5 stars. Next book. Okay, so the last book that I read was called Sparring Partners by John Grisham. So John Grisham is an American novelist, known for his legal thrillers because he used to be a lawyer. And very, very popular writer. He actually wrote The Firm, which is a movie with Tom Cruise that I watched, and I didn't realize that it was an adaptation of a John Grisham book, but I thought it was a really, really interesting movie. So I'm going to probably read The Firm next. I read Sparring Partners, which I had a look. I thought it was one big novel, but it's actually 3 novellas, separate little stories. And I'll start with the middle one because it was my favorite. It's called Strawberry Moon. It's about an inmate named Cody. At a very young age, he's sentenced to death, and his lawyers keep trying to help him, but there's nothing they can do about it. And just tells the story of how he came to be there and what he did in prison. There was a lady from a Baptist church who just sent him so many books, and his walls in the prison are just lined with them. He's read the Bible back to front multiple times. He spends 23 hours a day just reading. But it kind of talks about the regrets he had, and it opened my eyes to the corruptness of the death row sentence. It definitely challenged the idea that it would be a good idea. It made me think about it a lot more on a personal level. So I really enjoyed that one. I liked the story. The other 2 were more legal thrillers focused on the firm, not the actual firm novel, but a law firm, and talked about all this legal stuff that was happening. The first one, Homecoming, this guy Mark Stafford goes off, takes a bunch of money with him somehow, leaves his wife and kids. A bunch of years later, sought after by the FBI, but he tries to drop in and talk to his daughter. And it was kind of interesting, but I didn't really feel like it was a thriller as the book was trying to sell me on. Nothing super crazy happened. It was just a guy sort of coming back to his family that he left a little while ago. And then the third part, Sparring Partners, is the name of the third novella, and the whole sort of text. It's about a firm that's sort of split down the middle because there are 2 brothers working there. that hate each other. They don't want to talk to each other. And in the middle is this receptionist that sort of takes care of everything. It sort of recounts the dissolving of the firm. Everything's gone wrong. There's a bunch of nightmares happening with it. And it was sort of interesting, but it was mostly just like a lot of legal jargon, all the different court cases and stuff. And I think I personally just found it quite heavy with lawyer talk, and I didn't find it that appealing to me. So if you're going to read this one, I would read the Strawberry Moon out of the three of them. So yeah, I'll give it the middle one, Strawberry Moon, I'll give it 4 out of 5. The other ones I'm not going to rate. Okay. So yeah, that was December 2022. So I think got a couple books I'm reading for January. Maybe I'll do this once a month if I can. Just encourage myself, really, just to read more. So hello me, and yeah. Happy reading.